Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. As you know, we work very closely with our elected officials. Regardless of party, the Chamber does not endorse candidates. We work with those who are in office to make sure that they are serving our constituents and theirs. And of course, business, big priority for us at the Chamber. So we're happy to have someone who's very supportive of business and understands the needs of entrepreneurs. No one less than Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Murillo. I'm so delighted to be with you. I admire your leadership and your work in our community so much, and I always love the chance to visit with you.
Well, thank you. And let's go ahead and get started. Businesses, tariffs, taxes, just so much unknown for our entrepreneurs. Give us some ray of hope for those entrepreneurs.
Well, gosh, Dr. Murillo, it's been a tough year and a half and really a tough 5 years for businesses across our community with all kinds of uncertainty, certainly coming out of the COVID pandemic that was so disruptive and really changed so much of how we do our work here in Houston and across the country. But certainly the last year and a half have been particularly difficult. And we know a huge part of that is just that costs keep going up and things are less affordable for businesses, for consumers. Whatever work you do, it's more expensive. And one of the challenges, certainly that we've seen, has been this administration's approach to tariffs, which have raised the costs on folks. We know costs are going up for healthcare. We know costs are going up for food and groceries. So whether you're a small business that's operating a restaurant or whether you're operating a big business that's trying to build infrastructure, there's so much uncertainty right now. And one good thing is that the Supreme Court has said the president's approach to tariffs is unconstitutional, and the president didn't have the authority to impose the tariffs that he has. Of course, he responded to that by saying he would just figure out how to do them another way. So continues to be a challenge. And one of the things that I hear from businesses and folks who work in all kinds of ways in our community, that the uncertainty in the environment is the biggest challenge they face. And so in Congress, we are trying to work to do that, to check some of the policies of the administration as much as we can, and to pass legislation that's going to help make a more predictable environment for folks to operate in. But right now, that has been very, very challenging and continues to be.
Congresswoman, let's talk about Homeland Security. We've got the World Cup around the corner, so many different things in Houston that are occurring. Give us some good news as it relates to Homeland Security, please.
Well, when it comes to Homeland Security, of course, one of the challenges that we've seen here in Houston has been the delayed funding for TSA. That has affected travelers coming to our city. I was just in town last week for Sarah Week, and what an incredible time when we had so many people coming to Houston, more than 10,000 for Sarah Week at the George R. Brown downtown, and the incredible innovation and the work that was happening. Coming at the tail end of the rodeo, another great time of year. And of course, it's been so beautiful here. This is the best time of year to come to Houston. We will have the World Cup coming this summer and all the excitement that brings with it. And traveling to Houston has been a huge challenge because of the funding dispute over the Department of Homeland Security. And I'll tell you, Dr. Murillo, and the good news is those TSA agents at the airports are finally getting paid. And the president signed an executive order directing the Department of Homeland Security to pay our hardworking TSA agents who make sure that we're safe at the airports. Of course, this was something the president could have and should have done 40 days ago when this began, because the money is there. Last summer, the Congress passed a bill that gave a lot of money to the Department of Homeland Security that could have paid those officers all along. And there is a standoff that has not been resolved yet. I know people get really tired of the finger pointing and just, are frustrated with what's happening in Washington. And I am too. I am really frustrated that we had a bipartisan deal that the Senate passed last Friday, but the House wouldn't take it up. The House wouldn't do the bill to fund all of the agencies in the Department of Homeland Security, with the exception of the enforcement divisions at Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol. And there's a reason for that, and we can certainly talk about it more, but I have joined my colleagues in really objecting to the tactics and the directives that have been implemented in this administration around immigration and customs enforcement, and immigration enforcement and removal in particular. And so House Democrats and Senate Democrats have demanded that I think things that are really shouldn't even have to be demands, like the officers comply with the Constitution, and that they follow the same rules that all other law enforcement agents and agencies in this country are required to do. And so there was a deal to fund all of the other divisions of Homeland Security other than those enforcement provisions relating to immigration, because we are still working on that. And I can tell you, Dr. Murillo, my phone has been ringing off the hook. People across our community and people across the country are so upset by what they have seen in terms of immigration enforcement, including certainly the murders of 2 American citizens in Minnesota this year, but also abuses in immigration enforcement and detention, separating families, sending so many people here to Texas to be detained, and a lot of questions about how and why those things are happening. It is not consistent with our values or the president's statements that they were kind of looking at enforcement against the criminals in our communities. Instead, we find that 5-year-old children are being sent alone to Texas to be detained, and that is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to me. It is not acceptable to people in our community. And asking to get reforms at ICE and at Border Patrol operating well beyond the border and in our communities is absolutely critical. So that's kind of the origin of the standoff. But there is a deal to be had on the table. And the House, which is, of course, not to be partisan, but controlled by House Republicans, they decided that they didn't want to do that. And so we remain in an impasse around that funding. But I'm glad to report that the president has paid our TSA officers, but there are people who work in the Department of Homeland Security who still aren't being paid right now. I think it is unreasonable to ask our public servants to go without pay. And certainly there's money to pay ICE and Border Patrol because they got $75 billion, when you add it all up, more than $100 billion last summer in this, what they call the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so there's a lot of money out there for that. We can discuss how we can meet our objectives and also do it consistent with our values. And right now, that's not what we're seeing. And so I think it is essential that the Congress take that up. And as a representative for a community where 1 in 4 people here in the greater Houston area is born in a foreign country, we know how important it is to welcome people from around the world and to have a fair immigration system. We also know it's broken here, better than maybe anybody else. And so we need to do our work to make reforms, but we cannot do them the way that this administration is doing them right now. And that's a huge challenge, not only for our community, but for people across the country. And so we need to make sure that we can ensure that the functions of Homeland Security continue, because it's everything from cybersecurity to airport security. But we also need to do that without targeting our communities and making people afraid. And that's what I hear here in Houston. And that's not who we are. That's not what we value as Houstonians. And we need to make sure that actions that are being taken in our names by our government are done consistent with our values. And that's a huge part of what the fight is right now in Washington.
So as we wrap up, let's talk about some positive things out of your committees that you're serving on.
So I serve on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. We arguably have the broadest jurisdiction of any committee in Congress, and we cover everything from energy quite obviously, to healthcare, to technology and communications. And so one good thing I will share is that last week in our committee, we passed a bill that I introduced with Congressman August Pfluger from Texas, as well as Representative Mark Vesey from Fort Worth and Buddy Carter from Georgia, called the Mystic Alerts Act. And that is a bill to encourage cell phone providers to use satellite technology to make sure that no one ever misses emergency alerts. And it's really an opportunity to learn the terrible lessons that we learned last summer here in Texas with the Hill Country floods and the loss of our fellow Texans, and to try to make things safer for people across the country. And so that was a positive. It was a bipartisan bill that we introduced, and it passed unanimously out of our committee. Of course, our committee continues to do other important work. I'm very hopeful that we will move forward with some permitting reform that'll make it easier for businesses here in our community in Houston to build these great energy infrastructure projects, and to make sure that we, as the consumers, have more reliable and dependable and affordable energy, because that is critical, especially at this time of rising costs. And we're also trying to work, and I hope we will make a breakthrough on protecting our kids online. Certainly that is an area where we have had bipartisan legislation in the past. We have not advanced a bipartisan bill yet this Congress, but that work continues. And so we've got a lot of great things that we're doing in our committee. And like I said at the beginning, I'm very hopeful that we will be back in the majority by next January and able to really move some of these priorities along that are priorities for our community and for people across the country. So I do have good news to report from the Committee on Energy and Commerce, but more broadly, I would say, Dr. Murillo, and I think it's important, I have been doing this now. I'm in my 8th year serving in Congress, and there is no greater privilege. But Congress is not working the way that it should. And so while we're making some important progress at the margins and in our committees, the Congress is not doing what it should be doing for the American people. And that is an important part of my reporting back to you as well. We can do better. I've seen it. I believe it. I have absolute faith that we can do better. But one of the things we need is to hear from people across the community about what isn't working for them. And everybody needs to hear it. All members of Congress, no matter who represents you, no matter whether they think you agree with them or not. You know, democracy isn't a spectator sport, and making sure that people are calling their representatives, are engaging with them, and are sharing their priorities. We need a Congress that's a lot more responsive to what the people want. That is how it is designed. And I know that's how it can be. But right now, the Congress, I think, isn't doing the critical things that it should be doing to address the concerns and the needs of the American people. And so I will continue to deliver that message. But I also, you know, as soon as I deliver the message that I don't think it's working, I don't want you to lose faith that it can. I absolutely believe that it can. And that's what I'm there to do.
Well, we appreciate you and your entire team and the engagement you've had with the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We will see you very soon, and thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
The Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is the leading advocate for Hispanic business in our region. In Houston, we represent over $54 billion per year in consumer spending. Our thanks to our volunteers, sponsors, board of directors, and staff as we work to advocate for business and for a stronger economy. Learn more by visiting the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce website, HoustonHispanicChamber.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. As always, we invite you to visit our website for more information about upcoming events and how you too can grow your business, start a business, connect with executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs, emerging leaders, and others. Again, visit the HoustonHispanicChamber.com for more details. Happy to have our guest on. She's been a community leader now for 14 years and has done a phenomenal job at Catholic Charities. She's none other than Cynthia Colbert. She's the CEO here in Houston. Again, Catholic Charities for the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. Cynthia Nunez Colbert, welcome, and thank you for your service to Houston.
Thank you. It's been a great joy of my career to be here. So, and I'm leaving at the end of March, just saying. So, retirement's on its
Don't
way.
make that smile too big now, okay? I'm sad, but I'm happy for you. I still remember a phone call that you made as introducing yourself through mutual contact, and they said, "Oh, she's great. You know, we've got to welcome her to Houston." And you and I became fast friends, and you took on a huge, huge position there at Catholic Charities. Underwent all kinds of natural disasters, COVID, funding, you name it, you've dealt with it, and you've come out on top. Again, during some very tumultuous times, you've put together a great team. So no, you leave a great legacy,
Thank you very much.
charities, and a well-earned retirement.
Thank you. Thank you. You are one of the first leaders that I met here in the Houston area. And I just want to also take a moment to thank you, Lauda, for all that you not just do for the Hispanic Chamber, but really across the community. Everywhere I go, I know I've seen your hand at something, economic development, the sports area, and you've always been a ready advisor to people like me. And I want to thank you for your leadership. Because I said, if I could just speak like Lauda just a little bit, I'll be a success. So thank you for all you do.
Absolutely. No, we're a small team here at this chamber, and everyone is doing heavy lifting, has multiple roles, because it's what's necessary for us to do our job as a non-for-profit and have influence and relevance in this great city. But we need partners in the community, non-for-profits, executives, corporations, also to make sure that businesses thrive. And again, Catholic Charities is an integral part to so much of this. And you've seen just the vast changes in your 14 years, right?
That's
So
right.
much has changed. The needs, I would argue to say, are even greater than when you started, Cynthia. So what is next for Catholic Charities?
Sure. Well, we're in the fourth year of the 5-year strategic plan. The biggest goal is we had 11 big goals, but I would say the biggest lift is to open a new family opportunity center at 9111 Jensen. It's in a greatly needed area. I think that we're going to be good partners to the community and to the management district there. The campaign is 25 million, and we're about 15.3 committed, so we have a little bit more to go. And I'll say till I leave, but our groundbreaking will be in September of 26. Construction soon to follow, and I would say that achievement to our little pantry and center that we have now on Jensen, this will be 10 times, it's 60,000 square feet. We're going to co-locate all of our programs. And I would say it's a great opportunity to serve the community in a new way.
Yes, and as mentioned, your footprint has grown, the need has grown. What would you have to say to your staff, future staff, and professionals as you look back at your career, specifically just there at Catholic?
Sure.
What messages would you like to convey to them?
Well, I think there's people in leadership and nonprofits. There's 3 things I've learned and I kind of hang on to. Number 1 is be reliable, right? Do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't do it for some reason, then you're upfront and transparent about it, right? So you have to be responsive to the community. And that's true for Catholic Charities and this agency and other nonprofits and business in a lot of ways. Responsive to the needs of the community so that you can grow, right? We don't want to be stagnant. We're always growing in some way. And then the third one is resilience. I know we talk about it a lot for disaster, but truly today's leader, one of the key components you have to have is to be resilient, to not just go with the flow when there are changes, but to actually not just survive, but thrive in the midst of change.
And not be afraid of change. Understand
Exactly.
in this day and age, there will be changes, even trying to anticipate that need for change, having people on your team that can acclimate to change and understand that they're today throwing the ball, tomorrow they're catching the ball, and then they're stealing base, right? And so
exactly.
And you've done that well. And you've had a lot of people that were there before you and are still there and have a real passion for charities. And so especially to them, we say our thanks to them for their continued leadership. And, retirement, I think, is a celebration. And I'm so happy to see you smile so hard and have several months of travel planned. We recently held a webinar on retirement with some of our corporate sponsors and Linda Head, who is an executive at Lone Star, about planning, having an exit strategy, and celebrating this. So, what are some of the things that you have learned that you want to share with the audience as you now are moving into retirement?
Sure. Well, make sure you've done your financial planning. Very important, because you can't rely just on Social Security if that is part of your plan. So make sure that so for younger professionals, plan now, because sure enough, your retirement age will hit you, and you want to be ready for it. So that's one. I think it's okay to not have everything thought out, because if you're in a role like mine and yours, we're planning all the time. We have goals, we've got a schedule, and I think retirement is an opportunity to maybe unwind a little bit and then figure out sort of what the new schedule will be. I think it's also important to remember you still have purpose. Even though you don't have the title of CEO or whatever your title was, you still have purpose and values and a reason to give back to the community in whatever way you choose. So don't just sit home. I would say I plan to volunteer. I'm not sure where yet. It might be with an animal, might be with, who knows? I might call you, Laura. What can I do for the chamber? So I think giving back is still part of who I am. And so be aware of your purpose. And then finally, just get ready to, I think, enjoy a new phase of life. Spend time with your family and the people who matter in your lives. And I think we always feel like we never have enough time. Well, this is the opportunity to sort of dig down and be with your family and your husband or your family, your children, your grandchildren. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, and know that it's well earned and that you worked hard to arrive to this occasion. And as mentioned, that you're leaving behind a tremendous legacy of work and of lessons for the team that remains committed there, and for the next leader that comes to Catholic Charities, and to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, that you guys have been great partners with us. And we found ways to support one another as women, as professionals, as an executive, and during some great times in the city and some tremendously difficult challenges. But you've served as a great leader, Cynthia, and I'm so glad that we connected 14 years ago. It went by way too fast, but very proud of you, and looking forward to seeing some great photos in your ventures as a
Thank you.
retiree. So thanks again, Cynthia, and
Thank you.
see you soon, my friend. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
The Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is the leading advocate for the Hispanic business community. In Houston, we represent over $54 billion per year in consumer spending. Our thanks to our board and staff for making sure we elevate business and advocate for a stronger economy.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. What a great city Houston is. I'm so thrilled to have our next guest. He's here in Houston. He's here from New York. Now, Houston is his place to be, and we're so fortunate to have his expertise in our great city. Representing the Houston Symphony, he is the Executive Director and CEO, and that's none other than Gary Gensling. Thank you, Gary, for joining us.
Hi, Lara. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So how many months has it been now since you've been in Houston?
It's been about a year actually that I've been here. So
Already been a year? Oh my goodness. I feel like you just got here, and we were at a local restaurant getting to know one another, and it's been a year already. Well, I'm going to start with that. What do you think?
Oh, I have to say, Houston is a fascinating place, and when I think of Houston, I think of just an amazing can-do attitude, and honestly, the word opportunity comes to mind. This city just is so encouraging for people, and I feel the same way about the Houston Symphony. That we're at a point where there's just so much opportunity for the future. There's such a rich arts and culture community here, and everyone's been welcoming and supportive, and it's been fascinating to learn about the city, and I'm excited to see where we go next.
And very welcoming, as you mentioned, especially coming from New York to a city like Houston, where I don't know how much you knew about it, but You were smart enough to say you'd take this opportunity. We've got great philanthropists, number one. Number two, a great community, and then opportunity, as you mentioned, with the symphony. I think when you look at the global landscape, what do you see as an opportunity for the Houston Symphony and for Houstonians?
Well, look, the Houston Symphony it's more than 100 years old. And actually, the Houston Symphony history is really the history of Houston. It grew as the city grew. And the founders of the city wanted to ensure that there was great arts and culture in the city. And that's really in the bones of the Houston Symphony. And what I found when I looked at this organization and at this city was an orchestra that's playing as well as any other orchestra in any other city in the United States. Our music director, Juraj Valchua, who comes from Slovakia and is just an incredible artist. He's in demand all over the world. We have him right here in Houston. And, for me, one example of the kind of validation of what I'm talking about is a few weeks ago, it was announced that the Clyburn competition, which is a famous piano competition in Fort Worth, Texas, came to us and asked if they could launch a new competition for conductors using the Houston Symphony here and doing it here in Houston. And so this is going to be an international event on the classical music stage in 2028. For their last piano competition, I think they had nearly 100 million views online from 180 different countries. So it's a real international event. And we're going to be right at the center of this new one that's launching in 2028. Just one small example of how the Houston Symphony is sort of building its reputation beyond the boundaries of Houston.
And not only that, but adapting to changing times, changing demographic. When you look at Houston and you realize that the landscape consists of, more than 45% of the demographic being Latino, Hispanic, when you look at the demographic of 70% of all Latinos being between the ages of 18 and 44, a very young community. So speaking of young, tell us what you're doing with this next generation of Houstonians to engage them and make them part of the symphony.
Well, supporting young people and sharing music with young people has been at the core of the Houston Symphony's mission forever, really, since its earliest days. And we, for example, this season will have served over 60,000 upper elementary and middle school Houston students who come to Jones Hall and get to experience the full orchestra in Jones Hall. That's the most we've ever served before. And we're really, we'll be doing weeks of student concerts. You'll see rows of yellow buses lined up on the streets around Jones Hall. And we're really impacting kids that way and hopefully persuading them to continue to train on their instruments and play in school bands. But not only here in Jones Hall, we go out into the community. Our In Harmony program is now active in both the Second Ward and the Fifth Ward, where we are introducing kids through an after-school program to musical instruments, getting them to play for the first time. This is a really special program that we're hoping to grow even further and reach as many of the youth in Houston. So we're committed to sharing music with kids all across the city and, of course, here in Jones Hall.
That's excellent. I'm sure for most of the young people on those yellow school buses, it's the first time they've been to the symphony, but hopefully with your help and your team, it won't be the last time. Gary, as we're wrapping up the conversation here, please let us know what you'd like to share with the audience.
I think there's a real question about the role of the arts in our society, especially in times that feel really kind of heavy. There's a lot of geopolitical conflict and tension. You just have to open up social media or turn on the news. And I actually really think it's at moments like that where the arts matter more than ever. I like to tell people that you come to the Houston Symphony and it doesn't matter what happened during your day. It doesn't matter what happened in the world. You come into the walls of Jones Hall and you can just escape all that for a couple of hours and hear some great music. That's for me what the arts are all about. They're representing the pinnacle of human creativity, and we want to share that with as many people as possible. And even in times when times are tough, we think the arts are really important to give people hope and a positive message for the future.
Well, and you and your team are doing that every day. Gary, it's so nice to get to see you. And thanks for all that you're doing for our great city. And know that you have a partner in the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I look forward to seeing you very soon.